Aloha, everyone, and welcome to the Daily AI Show. We've got fun ups and downs and roller coasters of the AI news. We're going to cover a couple of interesting deep dives further into CloudBot and all the opportunities around there. You'll learn a little bit more about OpenAI's PRISM, as well as all of the rest of AI news today. I'm joined by Beth and Andy, and I am Junmei, and it is January 28th, 2026, and this is the Daily AI Show. So let's start with our round robin of news. And Andy, why don't you start us off today?
Sure. I'm going to weave together both CloudBot and Moonshot Kimi K-2.5, which is an open source model from a Chinese developer, Moonshot, that has reached state-of-the-art performance on agentic tasks and video benchmarks. And state-of-the-art means that it's beating the main players like Gemini 3.0 and Claude and OpenAI, or GPT 5.2. And it doesn't beat on coding, right? It's not the very best coder out there. But when it comes to running agents, which is really what CloudBot is all about, right? We talked last year about, this being the 2025 being the year of agents. And it really was a beautiful progression of agentic capabilities in AI. And now we're seeing with the a couple of weekends ago, the emergence of, or the clarity around the over the holidays emergence of Claude Code as a autonomous and continuous persistent memory agent operating in the coding environment. Now you've got CloudBot doing that for a wider range of things, and importantly, using the messaging apps, WhatsApp, Signal, Telegram, etc., as a primary interface to those, so that not only can you have an agent that's working for you around the clock, you can talk to it from anywhere from your phone. So you don't have to, open up a browser ever again for that reason. Anyway, that was a long-winded introduction to now Moonshot. Let me share my screen, and I'm going to show you what Moonshot has done here. Give me a second. It always takes about 5 clicks to get to it. Not that long. Here it comes. Okay. Now you should be looking at a beautiful set of graphs, and the blue bars are the ones that are Kimi K-2.5. And notice on the agents scale, humanity's last exam, which is a very important benchmark that, I think of as a more comprehensive assessment of what an AI agent can do when simulating what human intelligence can do. And notice that the previous leader was Gemini 3.0 at 45.8, and Kimi K-2.5 comes in at 50.2%. That's a pretty big jump against the frontier models. And now Kimi K-2.5 is an open source model, meaning either you can download it and run it if you have a big enough infrastructure, or it's vastly cheaper than the frontier models to operate, and yet it's better at agentic work. So then if you look down, see over in the coding section over here on the right at the top, you see that it's behind. Claude Code is the leader here. Claude has 77.5 on SweBench multilingual and 80.9%. Notice that these aren't on a standard XY axis. So actually 80.9 for Claude over here is higher than this 77.5 over here. Each of these is grouped in its own thing and cut off on the scale below. They're all very close, but these marginal percentage improvements by an open source model from China, which challenges the business model of the frontier models, expecting to have people pay money for their leadership out there. This is the confrontation that's existing between China's open source approach really quite clearly at parity with the frontier models in the closed systems here in the United States. Let's never forget also that Mistral is over there in Europe, and they also have an announcement this week about emerging with something really special. So while you look at that and you look down here at video at the bottom right, let me just say something here that came up on one of the things. First of it is that they introduced a thing called Agent Swarm in the agent space. It's a parallel multi-agent system trained with a new reinforcement learning thing called parallel agent reinforcement learning. So there's some kind of collaborative training process that happens when they parallelize multiple threads of agents. And they demonstrate an orchestrator that can spawn up to 100 sub-agents to handle those complex tasks in parallel. As an example, they did, oh no, this is actually on video, not this example's on video, which is very important. Here's what Kimi K-2.5 can do that the other models apparently cannot. You can record your screen while browsing a website, upload the video to Kimi K-2.5, and it clones the entire site, including all the user experience interactions and animations. What? So that was interesting because that means that you can now kind of reproduce any website out there that exists. And, who knows with what real degree of fidelity and interoperability between the original site and this one. But that's I think, a demonstration of what this multi-agent swarm capability is. You've got to believe that model is spawning multiple agents to do all the different components of a website, put it all back together, and then present it as a working model. Really impressive. And just remember that it's going to be a lot cheaper. And this is the connection to CloudBot. So we spoke yesterday about CloudBot, or maybe Monday, about CloudBot and some influencers who had used it using the APIs, right? So you set this up on your own machine, but you access models via API. And the API cost for Matt Berman, Matt Berman's video on CloudBot, which he did over the weekend. He spent $165 in API costs, and it was surprising to him. And so immediately there's a drive to figure out, okay, where are the lower cost models out there that can perform as well as the API costs for the frontier models that he was using. And I think in his case, he was using Anthropic's API for Claude. Well, I have the same issue. I don't want to suddenly see my overall budget for AI go up dramatically. So I want to use a low cost model. I'm working with Claude Code on my desktop, and I'm using up all of my credits every day. But I am going to, when I ultimately put MoltBot, I'm still saying I'm slow in the transition. Remember, CloudBot on the weekend is now MoltBot because Anthropic came along and said, no, you can't use the too similar name CloudBot. And so they switched very quickly to MoltBot. So when I put MoltBot on my machine, I'm going to use Kimi K-2.5 as the primary model that it accesses. Why? It's damn good and very cheap. There you go. That's Kimi K-2.5.
That's great. And that comment about watching the screen and gaining all of that information from just using the user interface, I think that's a huge jump in applied functionality, right? Because you can just grab whatever UI UX elements of whatever sites that you're looking for. It's like, I like how this nav is set up. I like how this interaction is set up, which I think helps more people just mock up whatever they're really looking to put together. It's almost sort of like having templated frames for like Figma. I'm just going to go to the website with the element that I like. I don't know how it's built exactly, but I can just tell Kimi to take a look at this. It's like, this is the thing that I want to pay attention to. And they're like, oh, okay, cool. And just build it out for you. So I really enjoy that. Anne has joined us. Hi, Anne. How you doing? Thanks for joining.
Good morning. I hope
Good morning.
can we hear me? Can we see me?
Yeah, everything's good.
Everything's
All right.
coming up roses.
All right. Well, before we jump to you for any news that you might have, I want to head over to Beth. Beth, is there any particular news that you wanted to cover for today? Muted.
That's because I'm typing to the chat. That's why I'm muted all the time, guys. It's not. So there's a discussion that I did not see that happened on Monday, so I don't think we covered it. But Anthropic allowed Claude to create and edit files now on the free plan. And they're going to bring skills and compaction to free users as well with Claude Code. So Claude can take on more complex tasks and keep working as long as you need. Now, there is the discussion that ensued was, hey, forget the free users. Let's expand the window for the pro users, right? The paid users, like Andy is talking about, that maxing those credits and then needing to go in timeout for like 5 hours. And I can see that, but I don't know how you would help people get to a place where they can physically understand they've done the thing that everybody's talking about without allowing people to do it on free. And then like scale up. Right? Like, oh, that was really cool. Yes. Now that's worth $20 a month for me. And depending on what you want to do, you may also get to the point where you're like, yep, worth 100. Right? I'm going to go down to the 20 after I finish the thing that I'm doing. But right now it's worth 100.
Yeah, I definitely like anytime they're adding more functionality to the free tier, because that's definitely lowering barriers. And I'm all about lowering barriers for getting, people into tech or whatnot. And at any level that I'm at, of course, I'm going to be geared towards, hey, I'd like a little more functionality, please. So even a bump up. I think I've kind of bored everyone with the anytime something new comes out, I'm looking for at least one a day. Can I try it at least once a day? So like when ChatGPT, their pro level, OpenAI came out with their pro level of it, and you could only access the top model, right, through the pro level account. And I'm just like, just give me one a day. I want to taste. I just want to see why is it worth it to go to that next level. And I think that's kind of that thinking behind adding more stuff to the free tiers.
The other piece, I think, and maybe Anne can speak a little bit to this. So at the end of last year, I became a certified She Leads AI educator. And through that, we were teaching through a site called Yugo, or a company called Yugo, U-Go, which teaches women in underserved tech companies. That's how I'm going to say it. But most of them were connecting to the education piece with a phone. So while we're and often with the free level, right? So because that's amazing for them to be able to do that, right? Like we were taught that there's no guarantee that the connection stays up for them. So we need to be really clear. People may bump in and out, not because they're not paying attention, but because the connection just dropped. And so what I'm seeing in this is as we get more capabilities at the free level, are we moving to a place where people who haven't had the access to like do tech to solve their individual problems in their part of the country, in their part of they're young women often, so in their part of society, what are we then going to see bump? And I'm really excited about that because I don't think that's going to be talked about on X, right? Like there are places in the world where this is having an enormous effect. So that's my thought.
I wanted to mention that Dario Amodei, who is just recently come home from the Davos meeting over there at the World Economic Forum, he was interviewed in a couple of different contexts there and made it very clear that one of the things that distinguishes Anthropic is its focus on enterprise customers as its business model, as distinct from OpenAI and Meta that depend on monetizing very large free user bases. And so there isn't that large a free user base of Claude out there compared to OpenAI, for example. So it's interesting that they offer now more of their new features to the free tier, because they might be saying to themselves, well, wait a second, we seem to have, we have a viral moment here. And then in addition, we have a facility that makes it much easier for people to embrace these agents. And by creating co-work and a mini co-work on the free tier with the ability to make and modify files on your system, now we maybe have an opportunity to build an on-ramp using free users who might then become subscribers to the pro level of Claude, which is like OpenAI, just $20 a month.
Right. Like you don't need to be in the parts of the country world that I was talking about to want to see it work before you're handing over your money, right? Like it's an excellent business move.
Yeah, I think there might be a little bit of a play here as well for smoothing over enterprise entries as well. If enterprise is looking for a specific application, sort of what they've been focusing on is like, yes, I want to use this in our build cycle, our development cycle, things like that. But you can also easily, like Andy said, ramp in your day-to-day business users or your day-to-day use as well to improve productivity or output or anything like that. That might be an easy selling point for them as well. So, all right. I know I've got a few more news. Anne, was there anything you wanted to cover this morning?
Well, I'm typically here for the news from Andy because he seems to capture all this news that I would never. Somehow our worlds just don't connect, and so I get to learn new things. So it's kind of riding on the coattails of your guys' ideas about the news, but the one thing I wanted to share, we've been kind of on an information diet for the past about 10, 12 days, where we've just really been out of the country. We've been doing very little with AI, like minimal work, 90 minutes a day of communicating with people. And I was paying attention to what like signal and what noise would break through all of that. And regarding apps, I was wondering, have we talked about CloudBot yet?
Extensively, yeah. But it's now
MoltBot. Yesterday?
It's now MoltBot.
Okay,
There's a ton to say.
Okay, there's a ton to say. Good. Well, so hopefully that's something that we can touch on recently. But I guess I would just share that even with all of the buffers around me, that came through on like the grassroots level and like up and sideways. So there must be a lot going on there. I'll just flag that as my hot topic would say.
What's amazing is that this was a project by a single developer, and he released it in December, and then suddenly over this last weekend, it took the world by storm. Unbelievable virality here, and you caught the reverberations of it through your echo free chamber.
Echo free chamber, yeah, cool. That's the thing that's on my mind. So I'm all ears for that and other things.
Cool.
Beth, were you saying something? Sorry.
Well, so another thing that a conversation that I've been following is the idea that CloudBot could have been released, right, by any of the frontier companies, and likely has been created internally, right? Like this isn't a new idea for the way that an AI can move, but because there was a comment that said, the main companies are like scrambling to release their CloudBot version or MoltBot version, and Andrew Ng said, no. There's a reason this came out from open source, like the legal, like all of the reasons that this would be really dangerous to release as a main company. Like, cool, no problem. This is how it's going to do. They're unlikely to release something that is this open, right? There's a reason it's open source. You can get in and just change stuff, and you are personally responsible for whatever it does to your computer, right? I'm still not sure if it's if it was true or not, but there was a post that said, wow, I asked it to fix this thing and it deleted my operating system off my computer, right? Like, I think we're leaning towards those kinds of capabilities, but it does need to come from open source, because that's just a big headache not worth having. But the other part of that story is that this is one guy who released something a while ago, right? And you can't buy the kind of attention that this just got over the weekend.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And even the attentions from I don't even know who it was, who said, I'm buying a Mac Mini and I'm going to have this run all the time. And that became the story.
The press was saying that Mac Minis, just on the strength of people, hearing that you could run this special agent, on a Mac Mini, which you can get at the low end, around $400 or $500, that these are flying off the shelves. And, it made a huge jump in Apple's revenues as a result of all these Mac Minis being sold from their existing stock.
So also what I'm seeing is the best time to buy a Mac Mini, maybe 3 weeks from now on Facebook Marketplace, right? Like,
well,
who said that? Was it Greg?
That's a funny point, because number one, you don't need a Mac Mini. There's some disconnect on the whole process there. But I think it's particularly funny to me because Mac Minis, specialty built PCs or specialty AI PCs and things like that, sort of taking over the circles of the do-it-yourself open source kind of spaces, because and what makes the Mac Mini so appealing is it's all in one. It's already made. You don't need to have a special AI sticker on it or anything like that. And one of the things is you can kind of network them together via their Thunderbolt, so that you can expand their cluster capabilities. But that's going into a bit of the technical side. But I think what it does overall, from what interests me, is it puts a focus on the hardware side of things. I think there's a lot of movement on hardware, especially if you haven't heard that memory, DDR5 memory, the memory that runs everyone's computers nowadays, is extremely expensive. And why is that? Because all the memory manufacturers have sold all of their supply to data centers.
Mm-hmm.
All the data centers that are being built. So amongst the gaming circles, they're just seeing this as another, it's like, oh, this is when crypto bought all the GPUs. Well, guess what's happened to GPUs? NVIDIA's raising the price on all their GPUs now too. So this, if anything, it's a logistics or a logistical question that needs to be answered or solved for, is we're really highlighting the the weak points or the weak chains in the link of the supply chain, because when something increases to this level of demand, there's literally not enough places in the world that can make enough in a day to meet that demand. So we're definitely highlighting potential weak points that need to be solved for as well. This is kind of like just the long tail of thoughts that just come off of something like CloudBot and a statement saying, "Oh yeah, now all the Mac Minis are going to be sold." It's like, okay, hold on. How is this all interconnecting? And it's far more interconnected logistically than we might see on the surface.
Right. But if you are paying attention, like there may be for the next 6 months some cheap for you Mac Minis coming available in various, but they're going to be local, right? It's going to be a guy.
Yeah. I'm a big proponent for running local, running open source. So hey, go ahead and buy your Mac Minis. And if you don't like it and you want to do something else, please put it up for sale for 80% off. I would really appreciate it.
Even you could just reach out to Jimmy. You're gonna sell it for 80% off. Cool.
Yeah, that's fine. You can find me at the dailyAIshowcommunity.com. Join the community and you can message me directly to sell your 80% off Mac Mini, preferably an M4. All righty. Well, I do have a couple of headlines that I want to go through. So first of all, Google announced yesterday that it's upgrading its search to behave more like a conversation without fully leaving the classic results page. The company is making Gemini 3 the default model behind AI overviews. Google's AI generated summaries at the top of some of the search results. Google said that you can now ask follow-up questions directly from an overview and then jump into AI mode, its chatbot-style search experience, while keeping the prior context. Google framed this as one fluid experience that still includes prominent links for deeper exploration. The company said that the AI mode handoff is rolling out on mobile globally from AI overviews. This move continues Google's shift toward generative AI, which creates text from prompts inside products that historically prioritized ranked links. It also puts Google closer to the interaction pattern users associate with chat interfaces while trying to keep the web traffic and attribution expectations of search. The key differentiator here is the UI linkage. Overviews act as a quick answer layer, and AI mode becomes the structured follow-up layer without reprompting from scratch. So this story is pretty much Google announcing it's doing the thing that it was it heralded that it was going to do. You were getting more AI integration. Gemini 3 is the flagship base model for its search and AI overviews, and of course, its AI mode. So I think this is just a natural progression of what they were planning to do and what they showed us with AI overviews in the first place. How this has been affecting the search market and paid search, that I haven't checked up in the last couple of months, and I'm wondering if that trend has formed from that. If anybody happens to keep up with that side of things, please let me know. Another quick story comes out of Microsoft. They ship their next-gen inference chip called Maya 200, and of course, they're targeting NVIDIA's moat here. So from Reuters, Microsoft said it's rolling out Maya 200, second-generation in-house AI accelerator focused on inference, a stage where a trained model generates outputs for users. Microsoft said Maya 200 is built on TSMC's 3-nanometer process and is designed to improve the economics of AI token generation with a redesigned memory system and a large pool of on-chip SRAM to keep models fed with data. So this is interesting to comment off of the earlier conversation about hardware. I'd love to see if Microsoft is just building new hardware to the R&D and stay at the forefront of development. But are they really looking at supplying themselves with their own chips? And similar to how Google primarily runs off of their own TPUs, are they going into the hardware market as well? They did say it's built off of TSMC's 3-nanometer process, so it's still TSMC that's making it. So that doesn't quite solve that logistical layer, but we'll see. We'll see what kind of things come out of offering a whole new chipset.
Yeah, on Maya 200, they say that later this week, if you're using Microsoft's Copilot, it will be running on the Maya architecture in Azure.
Okay, so So at least they're covering their own offerings. Reuters also reported that chips are coming online in a Microsoft data center in Iowa, with a second location planned in Arizona, as the company tries to reduce its dependence on NVIDIA. So this is definitely a reaction and solution to a single link in the chain with NVIDIA as well. It also said that Microsoft introduced an AI software development package that leans on Triton, an open source tool used to write GPU kernels, as an attempt to loosen NVIDIA's CUDA grip on developers. So all of these choices or solutions seem to trend towards wanting to break dependence on NVIDIA itself. Another quick story, or a couple quick stories, and then I'll send it off to you folks, is the Earth-2 weather models from NVIDIA. They're releasing it as open source. So this, I think, is a good thing overall. We were kind of talking about earlier, I think it was Beth, or maybe it was Andy, that was talking about open source being a way to quickly disseminate and have development that isn't necessarily the responsibility of like a foundational AI manufacturer or maker or whatnot. So in this case, NVIDIA released 3 open source AI models to make weather forecasting faster and cheaper. They announced that the models at the American Meteorological Society's annual meeting in Houston and positioned them as an alternative to traditional physics-based simulations. And if you've been following any AI and science news over the last few months, I know I've mentioned weather as being an inroad for AI, and how we're talking like 98% accuracies, and the quick turnaround on being able to get these weather patterns and weather information processed and have actionable information from them has jumped significantly with AI models. And Earth-2 is one of those weather models. They have been, like this one is made by NVIDIA, but them moving into the open source space with it does allow other scientists and other research groups to start using it in their own other models, their predictions, and providing weather research and things like that. So I think that's an overall great thing. I have a ton more stories, but please tell me what you guys got on your plate.
So actually, I have a question about the weather, about the open sourcing weather, because it sounds like it's going to democratize, right? Like you can do all kinds of things because now you can have access to a model that you could, I don't know if you as a college lab, but someone could run. But a while back, we saw this story that the current administration in the U.S. was closing a bunch of the science gathering data places, and weather was one of those. And so does this, like, is this kind of like the perfect storm where it's cool, we don't need that massive data set anymore because things were trained on it, and now we can just use it on our local weather? Or are we going to hit a wall with are all the data sources going to need to find a new organization or organizing function, right?
That's a really good point. What these models do is they allow you to process faster, allow you to process the data faster. You still need the data. So having a defunding of NOAA and other organizations like that is going to reduce the amount of data. So you still got to have that data coming in. So that doesn't solve that link of it. What it does help with is the ability to process the data that you do have into actionable materials. So, you still have problems in the chain where the data isn't coming in. And you're absolutely right. That's definitely going to hit a wall. I mean, we've hit the same kind of wall with the Landsat satellites a couple of decades ago, where we had the government had built this entire, satellite system to do high-end, analysis and recordings and snapshots of the Earth so that we can, do a lot of science on it. And that went private. That went private for a little while. And when it did, science development tanked. And then they brought it back under the government, and then it shot upward again. So there's a lot of history of, you kind of want it in the public space, and you want it publicly funded so that more people can look at it and work on it. Because otherwise, it's kind of siloed and closed off, and you can't. You really are forced to try and find other opportunities. But like you said, there definitely is a data wall, and I think that's been an ongoing conversation on and off, hitting into those kinds of walls. And is simulated data a possible solution for it? And then there's pros and cons for that as well. Something for weather, you might have a happy middle where, weather might seem fairly predictable, but with changes in the environment, you may need constant source of updated material, updated data for that.
So one of the themes that we have hit on a couple times in the past is the opportunity for citizen science. And maybe that is one of the places where we're now at a place where, like, that happens for local weather, right? I'm in the DC area, so my local weather people are the Capital Weather guys, and they often report, like, somebody uploaded a video. This is what the sleet's doing in Falls Church today, right? Like that kind of stuff. Maybe we're moving more into that kind of piece where it's not just uploading a video, but sure, I'll put my sensor out here and you can, like,
well, congratulations, Beth. You have activated my special interest, and now I'm going to info dump for everybody. I would love to see something that ties in a module like a Raspberry Pi or, a single board computer, an SBC, that had open source AI model that could run on it. So maybe an AI hat it's not going to require a lot, but have it be able to tie in with the Meshtastic network, right? Meshtastic or Mesh node, so that as that network grows, which is a public, a open source effort to be able to have basic communications, especially when larger systems are down or overloaded, like cell networks, like that. Like, you could add this node to your Meshtastic. It'd be a simple hat that you can plug in there, put that with your little solar charging array, and just put that on top of your house. And then everyone just put it on top of their house. or put it on a tree that's in their backyard or something like that. And you could have this span the world. It is a global, it's a global, protocol. So you might get that. This kind of goes back to the whole decentralized, distributed number crunching for folding protein for citizen science. And you remember the SETI at Home project number of years ago, where they were just crunching radio data? I think I heard somewhere that with the solar type systems that exist now, if every new roof in the United States put on their roofs, it would be a huge percentage of our grid's power requirements is solved for that. So I'm just saying, decentralized and distributed technology, citizen science, that might build up that robustness to grids that have sort of fallen shallow, or the logistical links have sort of weakened there. And if COVID has taught us anything, those things are very apparent. That's a solution we need to find.
Yeah, and what you're saying in terms of Raspberry Pi makes a bunch of sense, because I have 3 that were repurposed for something else that are just sitting there because I'm not doing that thing anymore. But also, I'm curious about getting to the place where these things can run on an old iPhone, right? And specifically to go back to the students that I had learning intro to AI at the Hugo class. Like, that sounds like the kind of thing that could be life-changing in a community, right? Like, hey, I took a class. I can now predict the weather based on these data points. The model is much bigger than we can run on a phone right now, I suspect, but everything is going to shrink and become more localized and need less power to do the things, I think. So, and I'm wondering, like, does that resonate for you?
Well, so I was just thinking about, because I live in a college town and all of my friends are scientists, and many of them thrive off of the funding of programs like NOAA. And so I was thinking about if we are using our whatever we're using to interpret that data becomes especially important if that data is more scarce or less reliable, or, so I think that what resonates for me is the opportunity for people to kind of be the citizen scientist aspect of it, of being more involved, being involved with their own AI, being involved with whether it's the hardware, the software, whatever it is, that these are opportunities for people to take these tools into their own hands somewhat out of necessity. Going to have to collect some of our own data now.
Right. Yeah. The importance of our own data and what the awareness of the value, whether ourselves or in the general sense to the economy, what our data is worth, and pay attention to that, and maybe work towards understanding the rights behind it and stuff like that.
Right. The bad news is you have to collect your own data. The good news is it's your own data, right? Like, you're not having to generalize from the general collection. You can actually do some of those things yourself. Cool.
Okay. Well, I have a ton more stories here, unless anybody has something that they want to cover specifically. One of the things that I wanted to make sure to cover was PRISM from OpenAI. It sounds like it's going to be pretty important. I think since we've been on this AI and science track, I'll just wrap up with a few more AI in science points. So let's talk about PRISM. So OpenAI has released PRISM. It's a free cloud-based workspace designed for scientific writing and collaboration. It has GPT 5.2 integrated into the workflow. OpenAI describes PRISM as LaTeX-native. So that's LaTeX, X being Chi. And if you're familiar with archive with an X, that's the same gist. Sorry, it's a thing for me. I had to point it out. Meaning it's built around the markup system commonly used for math and technical papers. So it'll help with drafting, revision, equations, citations, and publication preparation, all in one environment. So this is both on one side a tool to help science and scientists put together their information, work with each other to clean up that information, and eventually create abstracts and papers and things like that for publication. OpenAI said PRISM is available to anyone with a ChatGPT personal account, business, enterprise, and a little later education availability plan is planned, which I think is kind of backwards a little bit. I think you would launch with education first, but hey, it's probably just easier for them to initialize it. The company framed PRISM as a response to fragmented research workflows that force scientists to bounce between editors, PDFs, LaTeX compilers, reference managers, and separate chat tools. He also said that PRISM can support in-context chat with GPT 5.2 thinking, document-aware drafting and revision, and literature search and incorporation, including examples like archive. And it'll be tied to their current manuscript context. From TechCrunch, they described PRISM as an AI-enhanced word processor and research tool that can assess claims, revise prose, and search for prior research here. So the main benefit is the tight integration. The model works inside the project with access to document structure, equations, references, rather than separate chatbot tab. So like Office, essentially Office Suite or Google Workspace Suite, but for researchers. I think this is great. It definitely speaks towards their claims, and they've come OpenAI has come on a little bit of the science things that you promised us or you pitched us. Well, this is definitely one step towards that. Here is a specialized use for researchers of how you can use the ChatGPT ecosystem.
Here's just a quick stat on what GPT 5.2 underneath the hood provides. GPT 5.2 scores 92% on the GPQA benchmark, surpassing human performance in biology, physics, and chemistry. So that's the assistant that you're slaving to yourself when you use PRISM.
Yeah. So again, I think it will be an overall net good. We'll see how well the implementation is. I'm assuming they've already got a bunch of researchers who want to try it, or at least lined up to try it, and we'll see how that kind of outputs. I'm also assuming that we'll see more and more use case examples from their own in-house researchers, because they do come out with their own papers every so often. So we'll see how well that process goes. Maybe in the next slew of announcements that they make, or the next live stream that they have, we'll get to see it in use. But it is open for all the tiers and eventually education tiers. So give it a shot if you're in that space. And if we have any researchers in the community, or if you're a researcher who wants to join our community, go to the dailyaishowcommunity.com and let us know how useful you think this LaTeX native PRISM is going to help you out.
So part of what was interesting that I took from what you said was that it's designed so it will help scientists write as well. And 5.2 has come under fire. And in fact, it was mentioned at the OpenAI town hall that just occurred. Come under fire that writing suffered, right? The writing ability has gone down. It's not the best writer anymore, but maybe it's the best science writer. right? Because it was over, basically what Sam said was, it was overtrained on math and coding, and writing suffered, and they will actually be, in an update, they'll be focusing on writing as well. But, I won't read science writing that isn't, written by like the science communicator people, right? Like, this is what that paper says. Here you go. I got your 90 seconds. These are the important takeaways. I have a sister for that, actually. My sister science papers.
Well, I mean, if you don't have a science communicator, right, or they're not covering the content, this is an opportunity to be the research paper notebook LM moment for ChatGPT. So if they build in here's a regular layman explanation version or communication version of what you've put out there, that actually might be an interesting tool if researchers are concerned with how people are going to interpret this. I'm sure there's a ton of papers that have come out over the years where the scientists or the researchers are going, no, that's not what that paper means. You guys are missing it. This would be a great check. You just have like, oh, okay, what's the layman version of this? Oh, okay, cool. That aligns. That's perfect. All right, let's do that.
So it's no longer explain like I5. Now it's explain like you're Malcolm Gladwell. Okay, that's just fire off.
So, question. So, for me to use Prism, it's not inside the chatbot. It's not inside the ChatGPT chatbot. I go to prism.openai.com. Is that what you all are doing and seeing as well?
Yeah, if you go to openai.com/prism, I think that should link you there.
Well, what's interesting to me is this kind of connects to the many conversations that we've had about the impact of OpenAI on higher education, at least in the impact of generative AI on higher education, because one of the most, intractable issues with higher ed is, of course, tenure. And one of the things that tenure is based on is the publish or perish, and it has never really mattered, right? It hasn't, the number one indicator of is the research important has never been, is it easy for lay people to understand? Is it easy for lay people to do something with, or even a citizen scientist, right? To do something with, to implement it, and heaven forbid that it would be applied in any way. What I'm excited about this one, I couldn't wait to find out, is could this be that middle ground between very seemingly basic science that's not really basic, but still seems pretty hard to implement for the everyday Joe? Could this be that middle layer that makes us a little bit less reliant on systems like tenure, so that we could potentially reconsider? This is another piece of being able to reconsider how education is distributed around the world, but I particularly think of the US higher ed system. It's pretty cool. I missed this while I was gone, but
well, I think you bring up a great asset to explore, is how can we see the dissemination of research into the educational sphere and the public sphere quicker or easier, an easier transition. I think one of the things that I've definitely learned over the rise of archive is the process of peer review and journal publication and that whole academic side, because it's been a very strict process. And because of the influx of how easy it is both to output papers and review papers, that kind of process was getting a little wobbly, right? And less a solid foundation. But if these are clearly identified issues, then perhaps we can build that stability back in there, but improve that dissemination of information. Because the more you know, the better you're off, right? So, you really, if it's easier for people to understand the kind of research that you're doing, then you get people like me. I'm not a researcher and I'm not a scientist, but I love science and I love AI and science and I love all the cool stuff. This is also way back from when I was a kid and I collected all of the NASA, space mission pins and all those kinds of things. And I think that excitement in the public sphere does help scientists in the larger in their larger long-term goals, right? Because I'm excited about space science, I like to see when NASA says, hey, Artemis 2 launch for moon landing window starts in the first week of February. So let's pay attention to that. Also, a lot of things are happening in February. Artemis, Super Bowl, Winter Olympics is coming down the line. So
the Olympics.
Yeah. So there's a lot of stuff going on. So there's definitely a lot of attention for us to spend it on. But keep focus on what's important. Okay, so I'll leave that there. But just to wrap up, that I think that way to disseminate information and get the everyday person excited about science is a great way to further any particular researcher or organization's goals for science. Okay.
For sure.
Well, if there's nothing anybody else wants to say, I think it's time we wrap up today's session with AI and science. So today's story is about VASC-SILA, which is a UC San Diego open source deep learning tool for 3D hearing research images. So UC San Diego researchers describe VASC-SILA as an open source tool that uses deep learning to automate parts of 3D image analysis in hearing research. The work targets stereocilia bundles on cochlear hair cells, tiny structures essential for mechanotransduction, the conversion of sound vibration into biological signals. So all the little things that when you hear a sound, it converts it so you understand what that sound is. That's what those tiny little hairs essentially are. So the goal is to speed up a very specific part of the process, measuring and classifying each tiny structure. These structures help convert vibrations into signals that your brain can interpret as sound. What makes this process hard today is that 3D oh man, I can't even say my words today. Microscopy. Andy, what's the proper way to say that?
Microscopy.
That's the word. Thank you, everyone, for joining Andy's word of the day. So part of the process, it creates huge image stacks. So researchers often have to manually pick out the right slices, orient the sample, outline the structures, and label each of the cell types. This is slow. It's also very inconsistent across labs because it's a very manual process and it's hard to scale for very large studies. So a lot of these studies are much smaller than they should be. VASC-SILA bundles several AI models into a practical workflow, such as the Napari plugin, that can automatically do the tasks like selecting relevant slices in the stack, aligning orientation, and segmenting stereocilia bundles, estimating where the sample sits among the cochlea, and classifying the hair cell subtypes. The UC San Diego team also released code and annotated data sets so other labs could reproduce and benchmark the results. So what could this mean? number one, less time spent drawing outlines and more time testing hypotheses. If tools like this generalize well across different microscopes and experimental conditions, they can make hearing research faster and more quantitative, support larger comparative studies, and help researchers spot subtle changes in disease models or drug responses that might be missed by manual analysis. Oh, big jumps in hearing research and the study of hearing. Of all the senses and various AI stories that I've heard, hearing isn't one that was highlighted often. Most often it was tactile, the touch. There was even olfactory, where they made a garbage sensor, but they were if it reached a certain level there. So it's really, I found it really interesting that that we've got now AI and science in the hearing department. Hearing is one of our most important senses. We definitely have been developing hearing aids and hearing devices. Apple recently got certified to have the AirPods considered a medical device as a hearing aid. As we move forward in this development, I'm sure there's going to be more usage for hearing devices. Ear damage is one of the things, or hearing damage is one of the things that has increased since the rise in creation of headphones and other things, because people apparently listen to their stuff way too loud and it's right on their ears. Be careful, Beth. I notice you're wearing headphones now. No, I'm just kidding. But along those lines, on a more serious note, it's the possible things that we can learn about repairing damage, preventing damage to hearing, as well as the overall add to the scientific pool of being able to use AI for these kind of processes. Right now, AI use in science really seems to be speeding up the mundane parts of science, which is the vast majority of science, that middle part, right? We've got inspiration and we've got development and execution, but in the middle part is proving it all, right? And that's repetitive tests after test after test. This is one of the reasons why I'm not a scientist, but I love science, is because I like the beginning and I like the end, and scientists like the middle. So thank you for listening.
So,
yeah.
Juni, is echolocation part of what's happening that they're doing? They're putting sound out and they're feeling it. What the cilia? Yes. What am I asking? Is echolocation part of what they're talking about?
Not necessarily, but you do bring up an interesting sci-fi and AI concept. Is if they can identify and help develop how these stereocilia function, that could lead to how that could be enhanced. Just imagine hearing aids right now are filling a gap, but with any type of prosthetic, and especially the idea of like a cyberware kind or BioWare kind of prosthetic, you go from filling a potential deficit to becoming a superior form. So you might have echolocation hearing aid. You might be able to interpret using a translation layer, like brain computer interfaces, right? BCI. Who's to say you can't have the same kind of thing for hearing? So just like how the stereocilia translates sound into things that our brain can understand, perhaps we can develop a device or a aid that can translate other things that our stereocilia currently can't translate, but it can translate it into the stereocilia something that CloudBot can translate. So you may not have echolocation like a bat, but you might be able to get a little daredevil. I can kind of get a stereoscopic LiDAR of the surrounding areas.
So
At a minimum, you won't be stubbing your toe in the middle of the night on your cherries.
for the season here, you're gonna be able to say like, Alexa, what's the dog barking at? It's like, oh, what you couldn't hear, but the dog could hear was sort of coyote, right? Like, Alexa, stop. Sorry. And on that note.
Yeah. All right. Well, that is your AI and science story for today. I want to thank everyone for joining us. If you do want to continue any conversations of what we talked about today, please join the community at thedailyAIshowcommunity.com and make sure to click the things that make the dings so that you never miss out on one of our episodes. I want to thank everyone for joining us today. Thank you, Beth, Andy, and Anne. And I have been Junming. And everyone, keep your minds and your hearts open. Aloha.
Yeah.